Ambulance service, what's the address of the emergency?
Hi, I'm not sure. I just met a man who...
What's the address, my love, first, please?
I am on Berkeley Road in Westbury Park.
Berkeley Road in Westbury Park.
Basically, I heard a shouting in my garden. I came out and there's a gentleman shouting for help, mate. It's okay.
Okay, my love, tell me that. Can you ask him what's happened?
I'm not sure what's happened. Excuse me, mate. Excuse me. Hello? Yeah. What's happened, please?
Somebody threw acid over his
Someone threw acid over his face, apparently.
Did acid thrown over his face?
Yeah.
Okay, bear me a second. Is the attacker still nearby?
Is he who did this to you, please? His ex.
All right, my love. Is she still there? Has she gone?
Is he or she still here?
I don't know.
He doesn't.
That's okay. That's all right, my love. Don't worry.
Yeah,
okay.
He's on the way.
So you have acid thrown over his face?
And body, yeah.
In a world where love often turns to hate, the gruesome tale of Berlinah Wallace and Mark van Dongen emerges as a chilling testament. Once deeply in love, Wallace and van Dongen's relationship spiraled into a horrifying event. Wallace, a captivating woman, and van Dongen, a charming man, had their lives forever scarred by an acid attack. This heinous act, unimaginable in its cruelty, caused van Dongen immense physical and emotional suffering. The acid, his skin, muscle and bone, revealing raw flesh and causing unimaginable pain. Yet the attack was not just physical, it marked the end of their love story, changing van Dongen's life forever. The love story that began with promise ended in unimaginable horror and unbearable agony. One fateful night in Bristol, 2015, marked a horrific turn in this tale. The night was not ordinary, it was to shock the nation. Mark van Dongen, trapped in an unwanted relationship, decided to end his bond with Berlinah Wallace. He returned to the flat they once shared, unaware of the terror that was looming. As he entered their shared space, the tense air reflected the seriousness of his decision. Berlinah greeted his words with silence, a silence that was soon shattered by a horrifying act. Instead of arguing, she chose violence. Filled with fury, she attacked Mark with a glass of corrosive acid. This act, beyond comprehension, required deep malice. The acid through his skin, changing his world forever. His body was severely damaged. He lost a leg, an ear, and an eye. Paralyzed, he was a living testament of the night's horror. But the scars were more than physical. The mental trauma was equally devastating. Mark was left to face a bleak reality far from his previous life. Dr. Nick White was jolted from her sleep by desperate cries for help. Glancing out her window, she saw a man standing in his underwear, his skin an odd colour from his head down to his shoulders. It looked as if he was covered in mud. But she soon realised the horrifying truth. It was his skin melting. Mark had arrived at his ex-girlfriend's flat that night to end their 5-year relationship and announce his plans to move in with his new love, Violet Farquharson. Little did he know his life was about to change forever. In the weeks leading up to that night, van Dongen had reported his ex, Berlinah Wallace, to the police for harassment and blackmail. Wallace had made a disturbing 14 silent calls to Farquharson and threatened to take her own life. Despite these warning signs, van Dongen decided to stay the night at Wallace's flat, a decision he would come to regret. As the night wore on, cries of pain echoed through the affluent neighbourhood of Westbury Park. Thomas Sweet, another of Wallace's neighbours, grabbed a golf club, fearing violence. Eleanor Elcox was also roused by the screaming. She recalled the chilling words, "Help me, I'm going to die." Paramedic Dean Carter found van Dongen with severe chemical burns. His eyes had turned grey, the irises dissolving. His mouth was frothing with what looked like grey paint. The once vibrant man was now blind, screaming in agony and pointing at a tattoo on his stomach that read, "Berlinah." When the police arrived at Wallace's flat to apprehend her, they found her calmly sitting on her sofa. When questioned about the substance she had thrown, she nonchalantly admitted it was acid, used for distressing fabric. Van Dongen was rushed to a decontamination room in Southmead Hospital in Bristol. Upon seeing his reflection, he let out a blood-curdling scream, pleading, "Kill me now! If my face is going to be left looking like this, I don't want to live." It was not merely violence, but a betrayal of trust. It was a night that would forever alter their lives, leaving a trail of pain. A night that would forever change not one, but two lives. In the grim aftermath of the attack, Mark van Dongen's life was irrevocably altered. Once lively, Mark was now paralysed, trapped within his own body. Struggling for assistance, he dialed 999, his trembling voice expressing his terror and desperation. But physical paralysis was just a part of his hell, every loss eroding his sense of self. Each day was a harsh reminder of the night that took his life away. The emotional trauma was equally intense, if not more so. Once a lover of life, Mark was now grappling with an existence that felt more like an ongoing punishment. 15 months later, Mark took a heartbreaking decision that no one should ever have to take. He chose euthanasia not as an act of cowardice, but as a desperate desire for relief, asserting control in a life where a lot was taken from him. In a life where so much had been taken from him, this was the one choice he could make for himself. It was his final act of defiance against the cruel hand fate had dealt him.
I hope you can see the way I look now. This is because of you. I will be a thing upon your conscience for now and forever. You stood at the end of my bed and you said, "If I can't have you, no one can." And then you laughed. You evil woman. You laughed. And you threw sulfuric acid over me. You evil woman.
In the face of unbearable pain, Mark chose to end his suffering. This was the aftermath of a chilling incident that in one night altered the course of a life forever. In the court of law, justice is sought for every victim. The trial of Berlinah Wallace was laden with complexity and raw emotion. She was accused of attacking her ex-partner, Mark van Dongen, with a corrosive substance, resulting in severe injuries that left Mark paralysed, disfigured, and so profoundly traumatised that he chose euthanasia 15 months later.
At the moment of the attack, he's, the person I know, my brother, he's died the same night. The attack changed everything. It's not changed a little, it changed all his life.
It was very hard.
Hij had geen leven.
But he was in so much pain. It was unbearable. He had no life left. We had explored every avenue, and in the end I just had to agree and accept his decision.
The court's challenge was to unravel the intent behind Wallace's act.
And Mark would have been the only person that could have put the acid in that glass.
Yeah, he did, because he said to me it was water. "I've got water for you, like come and take your medication and go to bed." He wanted me to burn my insides. Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
Well, yeah, it would have been awful, yeah.
No, it's not. It's just like this man betrayed me.
When he told you it was acid, what else did he say, if anything? Obviously I wasn't there, but I can imagine his reaction would have been somewhat alarming, perhaps.
Yeah, he said, "You've put acid at me."
Yeah.
That's when, and then I just realized it was, and smelly, and, in the house, and then, and he was saying, "Oh, it hurts, and then, that's when I wanted to help him.
And I appreciate I probably know the answer to this, but I will ask you anyway. Why didn't you call the ambulance?
I was just confused and about loads of things. I was confused.
The questions that hung heavily over the courtroom were, did she mean to kill Mark, or merely inflict him with grievous harm? The jury's verdict was a culmination of painstaking deliberation. They found Wallace guilty of throwing acid with intent, acknowledging the malicious nature of her act. However, they did not hold her accountable for murder or manslaughter, asserting that Wallace did not intend to cause Mark's death or serious harm. This verdict elicited mixed responses. Some deemed it a fair judgment considering the case's complexity. Others felt that justice was only partially served. Berlinah Wallace was convicted of a horrific act, but acquitted of murder or manslaughter. The tale of Mark van Dongen and Berlinah Wallace is a harsh reminder of the devastating impacts of domestic violence and the intricacies of delivering justice. This tragic tale serves as a stark reminder of the destructive power of hate. The horrifying encounter between Mark van Dongen and Berlinah Wallace is a stark illustration of how a single act of violence can drastically change a life. This incident not only affected the individuals involved, but shook our society to its core. It forced us to re-evaluate the implications of unchecked hostility. The infamous acid attack on Mark left a significant imprint on our legal landscape. The court's ruling acquitting Wallace of murder, but convicting her for throwing a corrosive substance intentionally, breathed life into a new discussion around the understanding of intent and consequences in such horrific crimes. The incident makes us contemplate the legal nuances and societal implications it carries. Amidst such grim realities, we are reminded of the need for compassion, understanding and justice in our world.